We're going to look at BABA here on the weekly chart. You can see we're butted up right against this 50-day SMA in here. That held a lot of weight as far as a resistance goes for us in here, just as recently as about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then in March as well, off of that huge gap down, you can see just bam, bam, and again right here, rejections. If you go all the way back in here to last year in February, March, this 144, 145 area was a huge place of resistance for us. It was also a nice support for us in here in January. And guess what? All these are lining up right in that same area. So your 50-day SMA, that 145, 144 area, they're all kind of lining up right here. So this is going to be a huge spot for us to kind of jump and hurdle over. If we can get above here on some decent momentum and some good volume, look for us to stay within a $13 channel in here, about 144 to that 157. That is kind of the pattern that we've been in here. You can see once we get up in here, we stay in there about 3 or 4 weeks or so. So if we can get up in there, look for that to happen. But again, we're going to need a big push in here for us to kind of get up and then hold in here. If we do end up just rejecting this week, and then as we open up next week, just a huge big gap down, or at least a big drawdown in here, look for your first resistance to be right around that 9-day EMA sitting at 135. Then you're looking down here right around that 133 and then the 130 area. We're also going to take a look at Delta here on the weekly chart. We're trading at that $73 mark. We are down a little more than 1/4% in here on the day, but overall green candle on the week. We're looking towards that 77, right? That's where we want to be, up here of the top of this overall structure, but it looks like we're kind of struggling to get up there, although we did have a good weekend here on the week so far. But it looks like that we're kind of tapping out in here as soon as we get up near those high 74s, 75s areas. So going forward, that is going to be our first resistance. Then we'll worry about the 77. And then on the downside in here, we're watching this big thick line right here. That's going to be that 69.45 area. And then outside of there, it's going to be that 9-day EMA, which is basically sitting at that 69. We're going to take a look at oil in here because overall, your event risk premium is very, very juiced in here. Obviously, it has been ever since we had this big push here, well, above 100, right, with the overall war that's happening in Iran. So although we did have a little pullback in here on the week, and then on the day, we had a basically almost 1% up in here. Overall, your extrinsic value is very, very much juiced in here. Your IV rank has actually collapsed a little bit, but your overall volatility is relatively high compared to itself. So we have to be aware of what's going on in oil, because that's going to correlate directly into what the market does. And then we have to worry about the VIX, right? So here's how we're going to look at this thing. So we're going to start with oil. Overall, on the weekly chart in here, pullback, right? So we're below 140. That's really the only line we care about in here. We care about 140. We care about this 9-day EMA and the support down here right at 124. And to the upside, we care about the highs, right? 151. That's really all we care about in here. But we're going to use oil as a note to see what is going to happen in the overall market. So if we get a little pop or a little pullback in USO, we know that that's going to inversely correlate with the overall market. So if we do get a pullback, that means, guess what? We have a green candle in here in the SPY. You can see that overall, we're broken out of this overall structure in here. To the upside, we're looking at that 736 all-time high. Anything outside of that, nice whole numbers, letting the chart kind of dictate things. To the downside in here, we're looking at that 724 mark. And then we're looking here right around that 712. So pullback in the market, pop in USO, just because of the event risk premium in there and the extrinsic value, just because of how news-based it is. That is kind of what we're looking at, or you get a pop in the market and a pullback in the overall oil. And that means when that happens, you should get a pullback in your VIX. And guess what? We have all these red candles in a row. And so far on the week, it looks like we're starting to kind of even out down here right around the 17. But if the 17 breaches, then look for about a $3 channel in here, 14 to 17, to set up our relatively overall normalized implied volatility, right? So 14 to 17 is going to be the overall new normal, probably long term. So keep that in mind. Once we get down in here, we're probably going to be stuck in here for a while unless we get some huge news to kind of spike things back up. But overall, we're fighting with these 50 and this 200-day moving averages right here at that 1820s. Obviously, couldn't put up a fight against them, rejected both of them. The 1724, again, we're trading right below that, so couldn't put up a fight against there. So it's kind of waiting to be seen. Is the 17s going to hold? Are they going to hold? If not, then we're looking about 14. If they do hold, then we're just going to mess with these moving averages in here. So overall, what are we looking at in here? How does everything kind of come back into this overall correlation? Right. So we're looking at BABA. We're going to see what's happening here. That gives us a good kind of it gives us a little bit of the retail, a peek into the retail, right? But it also gives us a peek into the tech. We're looking at Delta just to kind of keep the airlines and a little bit of industrial strength with it overall. But we're keeping an eye on the oil as well, because the airlines oil is going to correlate with one another just very so slightly, or at least we're keeping an eye on it. And then as we see that oil start to pull back, we know a run up is going to happen in the market. If we do confirm that, we're looking for the VIX to pull back. And that's how we're kind of correlating everything, because it all comes down to reversion of the mean and volatility. That's what we care about when we are options traders the most. We don't care about trends. We don't care about anything else. We care about the overall volatility and where our extrinsic value is going to be. We care about the speculation upon more speculation per se, right? So that is what we're looking at here. As we continue through the end of this week, we're going to see what happens over the weekend. We're going to see where our ERP kind of opens up at for our weekend in our oil. And then we're going to see how that correlates going into the overall markets next week. So let's see what happens in here. If you guys like this video, make sure to check us out on all of our social media. We also have a Discord service if you are interested, and you can find all of our socials in the description below.